Oh my God, it has been a bit. I record in intervals, so when I do record, I'm like, oh geez, it's been a while. It's been a long, long while. Hello, welcome back to the Reforming Pessimist podcast. It's your girlie Abanga, and it's been a bit. Oh my goodness, it's good to be here. It's good to be doing the do. You can see that my hair's matching my beautiful orchids in the background. Thank you, girlie Louisa, for buying us a birthday present for me. Beautifying my room, bringing some little joys here and there's some color to the background. I hope you're all doing well. If you've tuned in and you just found this podcast on random, hello, hi. My name is Abanga Lydia, and this is the Reforming Pessimist podcast, aka Reforming Pessimist right here. And I started this podcast because I'm exploring emotions coming from an African background, a West African background in particular. I'm exploring healing from trauma, dealing with things like PTSD. I'm just navigating adult life, like working on top of all of this craziness, and just like kind of discussing topics on it, like making commentary, kind of putting my opinions out there in terms of like things I'm listening to, things I'm learning, and all of that jazz. So if you found me, welcome. Hello. I hope you like it, and I hope you subscribe. Please subscribe, because this is trying to build a platform here. So I can have conversations actually, because it's a lonely world out here. This experience is lonely, and I need people to talk to. Begging out here, begging. Yes, I hope that everything I'm putting out here on this podcast, that you're finding some joy, you're finding some knowledge, some things from the podcast. I'm really working hard to try and bring some more people on to talk to, because I feel like there's so much that I can bring and share on the podcast, and kind of help people with their knowledge and develop them, I guess, as I'm developing myself. Also in my growth, that hopefully everybody's also growing along with me, finding themselves, and hopefully building a better life for themselves in this raggedy world that we live in. Jeez. Oh my God. I wish I was really given a contract in the beginning to be like, do you want to sign up for this? For me to be like, let me think about it. Can I have a trial? Can we try this life thing out before we're dropped into it? But yeah, hello and welcome. Based on the podcast, structure, I normally do a check-in first, tell you guys how I've been doing, and then I move on to kind of like the main body of the podcast, where I have like a topic in mind of something I kind of want to discuss. I'm experiencing it, and I'm like, okay, let me just ramble about it. And I hope you find entertainment and enjoying it. So let's go. Okay, so check-in time. How have I been doing?
Raggedy. So raggedy.
Honestly, it has been a crazy start to the year. I was so optimistic in the beginning. I'm like, yes, I'm free. Healing journey is good on this side. Wow, how amazing. I didn't know people's life was like this. And then what healing does to you is that it throws you a curveball. You know what I mean? Yep. And the curveball was curving, really curving. And like all things, when it comes to dealing, with my traumas in healing, kind of getting myself to have an aspirational life, I kind of faced it head on, like in a very hard way, which means that it kind of like really impacted me. Like, I was kind of like on this kind of run in the beginning of the year where like my fitness has gotten better. I was looking after myself, I was taking care of my health, my mental well-being, and all of that kind of derailed. I just did, it was I just went. It just went downhill, guys. It was tough, and I kind of had a week where basically something happened in one of the environments that I kind of function in, and that just triggered me. That I spent a whole week kind of ruminating about it, because the thing that like the trigger was kind of like reminding me of the kind of situations I've been in before, and just encountering that in my kind of life where like I'm creating safe spaces for myself kind of got me to panic real hard. I'd be like, no. It was like alert. But what I did do well is that because I've been doing the work and I've been healing and I've been going to therapy and I've been educating myself, I kind of quickly recognized what basically that was and what triggered me, what got my body to be tense, what got me to kind of lose sleepless night. So I went and had conversations with those people who basically caused that to kind of resolve it. And it took me a while to kind of like release. I think the one thing I'm learning in this healing journey is that the triggers are triggering. because before I would get triggered, but I was so numb to the triggers because it was like every few hours I got triggered by something and I just kind of ignored it because I was like, oh yeah, surviving. And I'm at the survivor stage where, like I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, my birthday episode, where I talked about like I'm in transition, right? In transitioning into thriving, the triggers are real because now, like, I feel like I've cleared a lot of the baggage. I've cleared a lot of the trash. Like, I've categorized them, I've kind of purged everything out. Like, things are beginning to look pristine and good, but it still doesn't mean that it's not tattered, which means that like when they get touched, it just it's like no, 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 no. It's like going back to the space again and having to do these exercises where I'm calming myself, I'm calming my body, and I'm like, you're fine, you're safe, you're in a safe environment. It's not going to be dangerous, it's not going to be bad. It's just this thing that's happening, it's not massive. And also reminding myself of my strength. Of like, you've dealt with this, girl. Like, you've dealt with bigger things, you've dealt with bigger issues, and you can get over it. But in terms of my nervous system, sometimes it can't tell the difference between something massive and something that is light. And it's kind of really working on the next stage is to train my nervous system to be like, oh, actually, this is not that dangerous, or this is that dangerous, to kind of basically balance, because everything seems like the same. It feels the same to my nervous system when I get triggered. So trying to train my nervous system on that. It's like basically raising myself all over again, guys. It's like I'm a baby. I am a baby, aren't I? Without our responsibilities. Oh, child. Yo, guys, we have to laugh through it. We have to laugh through it because otherwise I've got my tissues and I'll be crying. Right. Yeah. So basically, I am training myself again, like retraining my brain, rewiring my brain to not react in terms of ways that I react. Also, like in terms of people around me being very honest and vulnerable, and basically breaking things down and having conversations with them. And then also kind of putting myself from in distance from things and relationships that triggers me as well. Even if I love those people, I just put in distance and kind of like secluding myself a little so that I can protect myself and like kind of work on myself a little. I am getting better, but it's a journey, guys. Like, and I like that I on this podcast I can kind of talk about the ebb and flows and be like, oh my god, I'm uber optimistic, like yay, pessimism, what pessimism, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I went back to square one. It's like, oh, I took steps and it's at square one. But the good thing about that though is that like I'm coming with a lot of lessons and a lot of knowledge, just a lot. And that is really nice because now like having the tools to be able to cope, having the tools to be able to have conversations with myself, having the tools to be able to kind of push back on myself, on my nervous system being reactive, is really, really helpful to me because it means that like I'm making progress and, and that things are working. Like, the work is really yielding some fruit. So this is like work, and I'm almost 4 years into proper deep healing where like I'm in therapy and I'm talking about it, and I've been meditating and praying and doing all of these things to kind of help me, and I'm beginning to see the results finally after years and years. So, and after even more years of really confronting, it's like it's never ending. And I'm also setting my mind and preparing myself to be ready for the fact that it's never going to be ending. And as much work that I do, I would get to a stage in my life where like something else will come into my life that I've never recognized before, that will trigger me, that will bring something up that I'll have to sit with myself and kind of deal with. So it's dealing with that up and down. Iradi means God, because the tree be coming out, the Ghanaian in me be coming out. And every time you hear me say, that is literally, that's every Ghanaian's response when they have no response to anything. It's like, yeah, somewhat. It is a big thing. Like, asem means like it's a problem, but it is a problem, but it's a problem that has a resolution in me working towards it. I aspire for so much for myself, for my life. I just aspire for so much for myself, and that joy and that dream of being like, okay, we can make something happen. Like the things that I aspire to, so they're not unrealistic, they're quite realistic. And it's basically like, hopefully I talk about that one day. But it's like being like, okay, I can work towards things that is doable, like it's possible, is what makes me really excited. Yeah, hopefully I get to bring more people on, because I kind of want to like, with the We Are Not a Monolith series, I want to kind of, there's ideas that I'm having and conversation I'm having that based on this episode as well, I'm hoping to be able to bring more people in to have conversation about it. But let's jump into the episode because I have a lot to say as usual, and yeah, let's riff. So yesterday actually, which is like really fascinating, because I was going to talk about pessimism and how pessimism has helped me overall, but I was watching an episode and there was like a debate on Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, and he had these two guys on there. I'm just trying to remember Gary Stevenson and Daniel Priestley. And basically, they talk about, like, the topic of conversation on the debate is the emergency debate. They lied about the economy recovering. It's a financial apocalypse coming. And it was a very interesting, watch the debate. I'm not a fan of debates. Even though, like, all conversations I have, it seems like it's a debate, but I'm not a fan of debates. And the reason why I'm not a fan of debates is because debates kind of insinuate that there's a winning side and there's a losing side. And I think that when it comes to humanity and the way that we live in this world, like, there is no winning and losing. It's just crap for everybody. You know what I mean? Nobody wins, nobody loses. It's just crap for everybody. And I truly believe in conversations of, like, having amicable conversation that disagree to agree, but also find commonality. Now, somebody might be like, oh, you're being an idealist because everybody's stand on your side and everybody's tribal and stuff like that. But I think that, like, there are people out there who do not mind finding commonality and common ground, because I see, as a human, as a group of people, right? I grew up in Ghana, and in Ghana, there's like about 50 plus tribes in Ghana. And everybody belongs to their tribe. We're very loyal to our tribe, and we ride for our tribe hard. Then I moved to England, and tribalism is not a thing anymore in England because you're black. It's nothing about being tribal. And so you're black. That means that you have to kind of stick to your group. So you're more like, okay, I'm now riding for blackness. And then within even the black community, people are riding for their country of origin. You're riding for either Nigeria or Zimbabwe or Kenya or, Barbados or Jamaica. You're riding for your country of origin because, like, that becomes the tribe. That's what kind of breaks us apart. I think my observations, kind of living in multiple culture, within multiple groups, in multiple work environments, in so many spaces, is that as a group of people on this earth, we're always going to be divided. Basically, stick to our people, ride for our people. It's kind of like the thing. And then some of us who are going to ride, like, who's just going to ride for, like, our cultures. And then there's others who are just going to be, like, open to explore, go out there, see what other people's cultures are like, see what other people are like. So it's in learning this that I know that, like, at the end of the day, it's better for us to actually talk to each other and have conversations with each other, rather than for us to argue and for us to basically, like, push back and be like, oh, my side is right, your side is wrong. You're dumb, I'm smarter. You do not know anything. You're not wise enough. Like, you know what I mean? All of these interchangeable fights that we have at each other because we think that we know the correct way. I think that is not helpful to us. In more so that the world we live in right now, like I said, you have to stand with something on or not. Like, you have to stand. And there are certain things, I'm not going to lie, you have to stand with because it's just egregious. It's just egregious. But I think that there's other things where we can maybe meet in the middle ground and sometimes find commonality and understanding with each other to kind of get issues to be resolved, rather than to fight over it and stand in our corner stubbornly and be like, I'm not going to change my mind, and they're not going to change their mind either. So then we live in a world where we're constantly fighting with each other and we're constantly beating each other down, and we're not finding any resolution. There is nothing. There's just no resolution. It's a tough place to be. And you see that more so now in the world that we live, where, like, everybody, like, literally hates each other. You know what I mean? White people hate black people. Not all of them, but that's what is being exuded. You know what I mean? Men hate women. Oh, Jesus Christ. And women hate men. Jeez. That is a big thing as well. Like, jeez. Oh, Lord of mercy. It's like, it's like two group of people who have different experiences, but are expecting to um it's like not seeing each other for their own individual experience or their own group experience, and maybe, like, having empathy and sympathy, but one be like, you don't understand me, and then I don't understand you, and, like, just the fight back and forth. And one also want to be like, but I want to be above you, I want to be more powerful than you. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be beneath me. And it's like all of these fights that we have with each other. It can get exhausting watching. It can get really exhausting watching us just be like that. And so it was in this debate that I thought about the idea that, like, oh my God. So the world is bleak. What next? In particular, if you are a younger millennial, Gen Zer, and Gen Alpha, whoever's coming up, like, and even for people who are like, Gen Xers and all the different generations after that, boomers, whomever, it's like, it's a bleak world that we're living in right now. And it seems to be getting worse and worse. It doesn't seem to be getting. So from the debate, what was fascinating about the debate is that you have a businessman, right, who's an entrepreneur, who's talking about how, like, for the economic crisis that we're having, particularly in England, to be resolved, we need to encourage free market, freedom of financial choice and decisions, and also basically encourage entrepreneurship, right? So that like people are more entrepreneurial, we're investing in entrepreneurs, from the analysis and from the data that these businessmen are presenting, is that a lot of entrepreneurs are basically bouncing out of like Europe and England to Dubai or wherever, because particularly being an entrepreneur in England is just in the UK in particular, it's not feasible. It's not doable. And then you have the other person who's arguing, who is Gary Stevenson, who's actually gaining a lot of popularity right now, particularly for working class people, because he's a working class guy who was academically brilliant, mathematically, academically brilliant. All these men, by the way, actually come from a working class background. So Stephen Bartlett, who's a working class guy, grew up in a two-parent home. Daniel Priestley, who's an Australian man who's also working class some way and chose entrepreneurship, and also Gary Stevenson, who's also a working class boy who ended up being so academically brilliant that they ended up going to a business school, ended up doing economics, and then ended up working as a trader for a bank, and then was making ridiculous amount of money as a trader for a bank. So these are very, I would say, in terms of the academic, in terms of the expertise, quite brilliant men who've been able to find ways to navigate the world and kind of bring wealth into their life. And they're all having a back and forth argument about what is the best course of the future for a lot of young people who are coming. And one Barry is arguing because he's more of an economist person. And as an economist, so he's been, according to him, been predicting for the last few years, and even from the pandemic, that we are basically going to get poorer and poorer. And there was a moment where he asked Stephen Bartlett a question where he said, Stephen Bartlett, so you were born in Botswana, right? And Stephen Bartlett said, yeah, I was born in Botswana. And, he said that, like, so do you know that he basically made this comment or this point that, like, he sees England basically ending up in a place like Botswana, where the wealth inequality is like so massive between the wealthy and the poor, and that was very striking to me, because he said, I have bet my whole life on things getting worse and worse economically for the working class, and I have won every single time, and I've made money off it every single time, and I know I'm going to be fine. I know my children are going to be fine. I just know that the way that we are going, and just the trajectory that we are going, and the world changing, is just going to get harder and harder. And England is looking at like it will be similar to Botswana, like a third world country. Fascinating point. Fascinating point. But I think, like, I will have an argument on that, because like, I'll be like, actually, I disagree with that. Maybe he's saying that he's projecting for the next 70 years. You know what I mean? But I'm like, but Botswana, for instance, didn't have the head start that England had in terms of pillaging a whole country to basically build the infrastructure and build the system. So it's going to be hard for England to fall back into those times. Again, sometimes like it's privilege and being able to see things from certain lens. So these are three white men. I mean, two white men and a biracial man. Different perspectives, different point of view. But I got what he was saying. I really heard him when he said that. I was like, oh, that's actually quite a fascinating point, interesting point. Then you have Daniel Priestley, who was also talking about it's not the be all and end all of things, because, if we change the educational system, and if we basically like encourage kids to be more adventurous in terms of like taking risks, launching businesses, like, finding a business and creating something that could literally get them to escape the poverty that they're in, escape whatever social struggle that they're in, and so much and so forth. And then the back and forth argument was the fact that, like, these men were talking back and forth with each other, arguing about what is the best way, what is the right way, and there's still not being a realistic, viable solutions, because, and it's a point that they raised as well, where it's like basically approximately 90 to 95% of businesses fail. So depending on how many people who start a business, that fails. And then there's also this argument of fact that, like, this whole traditional work style environment that we've always had in place, where, like, you're told, go get an education, go get a master's, and then go into a corporate job or a bureaucratic job like with the government, and then build your career on there to be able to build a lifestyle for yourself and build a career, like, build something for yourself. So that is also slowly fading away, because a good point that they made on the debate was the fact that, like, we now live in a globalized world. And I think that when it comes to Brexit, I remember I was in a uni. This is 2015, and I was learning about globalization because I did sociology. Learning about globalization and stuff like that. When Brexit came up, I'm like, oh, actually, I know that we're not going to leave Europe because I think that like it would be really dumb. I was thinking from a very sociological point of view that it would be really dumb for England or for Britain to leave Europe because the world is becoming globalized right now, and right now the competition is between America and China. China was slowly picking up fast and quick at that time. China is now really on par with America. Actually, America is really scared of China right now. So in terms of like, industrialization, in terms of like technology, in terms of anything, like China's literally toe for toe with America right now. So with Brexit happening, I thought, oh, Brits are gonna vote. But I also didn't understand that like a lot of Brits, like for instance, like, a lot of corporations were moving, factories and all of these work into countries like India, countries like like a lot of work was going into like, Asia, East Asia, South Asia, and also some work was also going to Southern Africa, which means that like there were a lot of people in England in particular who've lost so much work, lifestyle, being able to afford certain things and stuff like that. And the way the kind of like propaganda, coercion in the media work is that they basically tell you that like actually blame this or blame immigrants, i.e. me, people like me who live in England, or you blame this other group of people, right? You either punch down, you punch up, and not really look at the system that's basically like failing, or the system that's not working anymore, or like the changing world that we're in right now. And it was in that conversation I started to realize, oh my God, like right now we're not living in an individual country world or an empire world where like Europe is the most powerful part of the world across the globe, or North America is the most powerful part of the continent across the globe, right? The wealth of the world is spreading. It's spreading now because now China is also claiming some of that wealth and making sure that he is bringing that into the Asian market. Middle East is also claiming some of that wealth because they're also building their empire as well, and they're also claiming some of that market. So a market that was only situated in Western worlds, like in Europe or in North America, that dynamic is changing. Basically, that kind of wealth and success and whatever is changing now. It's not just in the West anymore, which means that like people in the West are beginning to feel it. The empire is not the same anymore. The empire is actually changing. For a lot of young people growing up in the West, and not just in the West as well, but across the world now, they're beginning to see the bleakness of the future. The future looks bleak. Because when you now, I'm talking about things on a macro level, because these men are having a conversation on a macro level, and Gary Stevenson's kept bringing it back to the micro level, like to like the individual level, where it's like, oh, people can afford rent now. People are having to leave the cities that they grew up in because it's not affordable to live there anymore. People can afford to raise their kids. People can afford to look after their children. It's a big issue right now in the West. Like poverty rates are sky high. Child poverty rates are sky high. Like everything is like really hard. Like dating is hard because economics affects dating. A lot of men have been raised to believe that like you need to be responsible, you need to be the man, you need to be able to be the provider, all of these socializations that we've all been brought up with, of kids of teens and early noughties. Now you get to your late 20s, early 30s, and you can't afford to even pay your rent. Then think about dating, being in a relationship, having a partner, and then raising kids. And so now you're making very tough choices and decisions. You know what I mean? You're giving up on dreams and ideas of being like, oh, I'll be able to own a home or be able to rent a really good home to raise my kids in. Like, there is all of these dreams and aspirations that a lot of us have now that is seeming more and more like it's impossible to achieve those dreams. It's impossible to gain those dreams. And I can understand the crisis and the loneliness of it. And the fact that like a lot of us thought that like by the age that we were, we own our own home. Guys, I'm sitting in my single room, rented. I'm sitting in my They really saw those dreams, guys. And more so that I've kind of become, I'm going to do one of these episodes every now and then, so like my observations of how the world is going and my thoughts and ideas and things that I'm strategically thinking of doing moving forward. Hopefully it helps some young person or some old person out here, because I don't think it's just the young that are suffering now, but also the old are suffering, particularly if you're in England. Like if you're in the UK right now, your pensions are being taken from you. Like your if you're of a certain disability, you're not getting all the benefits that you used to be able to get anymore, because like economically as a country we're really suffering. And it's not funny. have to laugh, guys. I have to laugh. And the privileges of being a Westerner, those privileges are not there anymore, or to be experienced and to be felt. And that makes things harder and harder, which means that if you're a young person and you're looking to the future and you're like, actually, I'm excited about because one of the things that they talked about in the debate that was really fascinating me was to talk about, the excitement of like what the future holds and what could happen and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, so every year it gets worse. The pressure is getting worse. It's not getting good. Every year is getting worse. And so how do I look up? How do I get optimistic? How do I have an upside, right? And this is where the main topic that I thought of was like, oh, how pessimism helped me. I was like, oh, this is really fascinating. How do I intertwine that? So it's like pessimistic, our bleak outlook into the world. How do we counter that, right? Because it's like the future is bleak. Now, what next? Does it mean that like you still have to live a sad life? Does it still mean that like you have to live life without joy and excitement? Because we don't know what's gonna happen because we can't attain certain things that we wanted to attain, or maybe should we start changing the culture and reinventing the narrative in terms of like what we want the future to be for us, because at the moment these are the challenges that we are facing, and this is how we have to kind of go with it and go about it. A good point that I wanted to make is that of late I've been listening to the author Lan the Bottom. I don't know if I said his name right. Loving that guy as a philosopher, really loving him. He's really helped me out, actually. I'll talk about that later or another time. But he's really helped me in terms of like, his view and his perception of the world and how we need to basically see things. And there's something that he said that really stuck with me, which was like, he's like, all the challenges that we face in humanity right now is not new. It's always happened. It's always happened. Every evolution, right? Every evolution of human beings in terms of like different centuries, into the different changes across the board has always had a tragedy, has always had a challenge, has always had a difficulty. There was this talk that he did on romanticism, or one of his talks that he does. Like I really love listening to him right now. And then somebody asked him and was like, if you're a young person right now and you're considering like, having a kid, is it a smart idea to have a kid right now when economically it's not the best? In terms of climate change, things are getting worse for us. They're bringing up all the world issues that kind of make it really tough for us to really see the future and be like, wow, is this something I can enjoy and experience? And the way that he responded to was quite fascinating. He was like, he said like before in the Middle Ages, like, people were like, I lived to 30, so let me just have my kid. Like you had a kid knowing that like your kid will die, or some of your kids will die, but some of them will survive. And you knew that like there would be all these diseases they could catch or whatever, but you still had the kids anyway because you just never knew. You just kind of let them live to like have the experience. It's in kind of like us being in a place where we make choices and decisions for ourselves, knowing that like, what, it may not be the perfect choice because humanity has never had the what's it called? Humanity's never had the freedom to make choices that really serve us, because at the end of the day it's still going to come with its challenges. It's still going to come with its pessimistic point of view. And Neil deGrasse Tyson actually had a really good episode on his podcast on Star Talk, where they had a conversation about, is free will actually a thing? Like, do we actually have a free will? And these scientists had a debate on it. It's a really good episode. Go check it out. It's like really fascinating because the argument was that we actually do not have free will, because our freedom in terms of like the choice and decision we make is still always influenced by something, either by our foundation, either by our life, either by whatever kind of information that's been poured into us, like whatever like social challenges that we face, basically, like whatever our environment like pushed onto us, right? And then when you go into the bigger world as well, like, do you really have free will when corporations are actually the ones that are managing you? You work to get salary. Some of us do not want to be in our jobs. Some of us do not really want to be in our jobs. If we have free will, a lot of us will quit our jobs and go live on an island somewhere. But we stick to these things because we know that there's like a result, there's something that's beneficial that comes at the end of it. So do we truly have free will? Right. And then also we make certain decisions and choices either selfishly to benefit us, and we spite people, we step on people's neck because at the end we want to give ourselves advantages. It was like a very, very interesting conversation. So we truly believe that we have free will to be able to do what we want to do, but actually it may be that that's not the case. So going back to Alan's point in terms of being like, it's not a challenge that humanity, if not had over the course of our existence on this earth, that it's not still happening for every generation. Every generation has gone through it. Every generation has faced something. Every generation has had a challenge. And even with the whole thing about Middle Ages, like my granddad was a polygamist and he had multiple wives. And I think that his second wife, she kept having children and children kept dying. Like, and that was common for a lot of women at that time. This was in the 40s and 50s, late 30s, 40s, and 50s. And, you know, she named one of her sons, kill them and leave them. And I was like, as a kid, when I heard that when my uncle was called, I was like, why are you called kill them and leave them? That is a very bad. And then, you know, when you're a Christian as well, like, oh, the tongue is powerful. And then it was explained to me later on by an elder that actually the reason why she named that son, you know, kill them and leave them, or kill them and it's not like leave them per se. Bas means stop. Kill them and stop. You know what I mean? Like kill them and stop is what it would be. So I think that would be the right word to use. Like kill them and stop. Bas in my language means stop. And home means kill. So like the guy was called Kombas, which means that kill, stop. Right. And I was like, why would you call your kid kill, stop? And then the elder explained to me that, like, you know, when she was having the kids, like at this point, she had had multiple children who had died subsequently over and over again. And this child, when she had them this time, because pregnancy is not easy, childbirth is not easy. You push one baby out and the baby, that is a lot on a woman. So I think that naming her child, that was basically either to the universe, to the gods, to be like, please, for this one, stop. I know you've killed the other ones, stop. And this guy survived and became a menace, but he survived. He survived. So it's the thing that, like, you know, I believe that every generation have had an upset or a challenge or a difficult period. And for our generation, particularly for us millennials, or in this century that we're in, this whole crisis of the world of be like, we have no control, we have no power, there seems like there's nothing that we can do, the world is going to shit, everything is falling apart. I think that this is like our burden and our challenge and our struggle. And now what is the question? After almost half an hour, over half an hour, now what? Right? If the future is so bleak, now what? Like, how do you look forward to the future? How do you look forward to things and life and what's going to happen? And from a pessimist, I'm here to talk about it. Let's go. And so, now I'm going to talk about how pessimism have helped me, right? And the reason I call the podcast Reform and Pessimist is because I grew up in looking at the world and looking at the future as bleak. So up until about a year or two ago, I never dreamed about the future. I never dreamed about what life could be like. I never dreamed about what my possibilities was, like, you know, if I could do anything. There were dreams and aspirations that I had as a kid, but those dreams and aspirations quickly got squashed. As I got older, they were being squashed. Like, you cannot dream like that. Your life is not yours. You do not have choice. You do not have control. Based on all these extenuating circumstances of being a woman in this world, being a child of a certain culture, a certain religion, a certain tribe, where this is like kind of normalized and perpetuated. So I grew up seeing the future as bleak. Therefore, being very pessimistic. That's why the podcast is called Reforming Pessimist, because I'm like trying to really change that narrative and that mindset and actually see the future from a different lens. So I feel like maybe I can offer something here, guys. And if you disagree with me, comment. Let me know. And if you also want to add to it, add, because I really want to hear about other people's opinion. And in me seeing the future as bleak means that, like, I walked for a long time through life just surviving. And the privilege, right, of growing up in England is, at some point, when I arrived in England in 2008. So when I arrived, like, you know, there was benefits. You could go to the government if things are hard for you. The government will supplement you, all of these stuff. And even though I had access to it, I never went to the government because I kind of was programmed based on like my upbringing in Ghana, like, you survive by yourself. You have no help. Nobody helps you. Nobody comes to save you. You survive by yourself. You fight for yourself. You go for yourself. It's like there was this programming, particularly I know for sure, like growing up as an African woman, a West African woman, and particularly the Ghanaian woman and a Kusasi woman. Let's even go deeper that. You as a woman, you are of service to the community. Everything for the community is on your shoulders. You need to show up for the community nonstop. However, when it comes to the community showing up for you, that's a different story. You show up for the community and you show up for yourself. That's the kind of learning I gain and the socialization I gain. I also learned from other women who've also grown up in similar cultures to me. They're like, no, that was actually not the case for them. They served the community, but the community also served them by in terms of other women also serving them. But so my experience is very, very linear and also very subjective as well. So it's not the case for everybody. Everybody's experience is different. So some people, they get the community to show up for them in other turns, but in my case, the community never showed up for me. Like, the community was like, you're sinking, sink by yourself. And the community was like, oh, also I'm sinking, come and get me. And as a woman, your socialization is that always go save people, always go check on people and stuff like that. And because of that, I knew that, like, to save the community, to be there for the community, mean that I had to basically disregard myself and basically like throw myself away and stuff like that, which got me to be very pessimistic by the fact that, like, okay, then the future is not for me. I will never gain anything. I will never be able to live life for myself. I will never be able to be happy. I will never be able to achieve things like, marriage, love, like, all of these things. I sold myself this narrative and this story. And as we grow and as we get older, a lot of us, we get to a place where, like, what, I actually want to settle down. Like, and it's just not just women, it's men too. I maybe want to have kids and raise my kids because we all have aspirations. I want to have a good job where, like, my kids are not suffering like I suffered when I grew up. I want to be able to, like, eat good food and experience new things and experience culture and have brightness and joy in my life. And the further away that dream is, the more heartbroken and pessimistic that you become, because you're like, it's never going to happen. It's never going to be attained. It's never going to be achieved. However, for me in particular, what that pessimism did for me is that I was also in a place of survival where I didn't have help coming from nowhere. And because I knew that there was no help coming from nowhere, I was like, okay, I need to survive. And it was in that pessimism and survival that I was like, maybe deep down also secretly being an optimist. I don't know. It was like, okay, let me try this. Let me chase this. Let me go and look into this. Let me research. Let me see. And most of these things I was doing in particular because I was like, I need to survive in this environment. This environment is not giving me any leeway. It's not giving me any rooms to maneuver. It's not giving me any possibilities to dream or to do anything. But what I can do is I can survive. So I can afford my rent and feed myself. This shit is a food, but, like, afford my rent, feed myself, and be able to be alive from day to day while struggling with heavy, heavy societal ideation. Like, heavy societal ideation. So doing this doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its own challenges and its own battle. But the good thing that I was doing was basically pushing, researching, looking at things, looking at possibilities and stuff like that. Not relying on a government, not relying on a community, not relying on anybody to support and help me. And also finding my people to be able to walk with me on this. Luckily, bumping into some of my people who either was like, stick with me and I'll stick with them, seeing that, oh, actually, this person in my community, actually, they're really good at writing. I'm not good at writing. Let me get them to help me write. Or they're really good at speaking and exposing themselves and doing all these social things. Let me do that. Okay, they know about this kind of social way of presenting yourself publicly so you can actually do well and, like, perform in a certain way out in public. Let me also pick that up and learn. Oh, that teacher can actually mentor me. They have knowledge. Or that person is really friendly. They can give you some knowledge here. Or that person's done that career. I mean, they can lead me this way or this path. This person can give me advice to be able to negotiate, have conversations about certain things, have certain difficult things and stuff like that. Meeting people who are like, what, I got married and I got divorced and I got married again and it was successful. I've had children out of wedlock and it's hard, but you know what, I'm doing life and I'm surviving in that way. It was in actually coming down to my micro level instead of focusing on the world and how big the world is and all the problems that's going in the world. I mean, like, okay, in a micro sense, like in a very small lenses of my community and my environment and where I am, how are people doing it to try and sustain? Because even though all of us are going through this world, we're not all facing it from a pessimistic point of view. Some people are just doing it and being optimistic. Like, a good example is one of a woman that I know that I admire so much, dear friend's mom. And this woman has been through the ringer. Like, when I say the ringer, like, experienced so much loss, so much in this life, and one of the most optimistic people ever. Oh, auntie, wow, like in their late mid-50s, almost to late 50s, and they're so joyous about life and they're still having fun. And it's not because they're wealthy, struggling financially. You know what I mean? Having so many people lean on them and rely on them and still showing up and showing out into life. And I hope to one day be able to get her on to be like, even as bleak as the future had looked and life has looked, how did you still maintain that optimism and that drive to be like, let me just live life and let me just enjoy it. Right? Let me still have fun in it. And I think that that's the aim and the goal is to see that the world is bleak, but on a micro level for you, how can you make it better for yourself? And it may seem individualistic, but I think that, like, in a sense, it's kind of individualistic and also communal, because it's individualistic because as you better yourself, you're able to also bring community and build community. You also get to influence your own environment and so on, particularly the people that want to be influenced, and also change their mindset and also change the narrative that they're going in, they're having with themselves, to be able to also be open to things. I think that that's what happened with me, where, like, in my pessimism in particular, even though my pessimism was driving me and I saw the future as bleak, as I built community, and as I got to know more people who had different lenses and view and outlook on the world, even though they understood the same situation that we are all facing, similar demographics, similar age group, the same situation we're facing in the world, them still making decisions and choices to be like, you know what, and even in all of that, even in the financial crisis, even in economic issues, even in things getting hard, partners losing jobs, redundancies just being a thing, if you work in a corporate world, like every year, if you work in a corporate world, you're sat on your ass like, tense, is it gonna be me? Is it gonna be me? In terms of redundancies, every year, the way you work in a corporate, a private organization, every year you have to prepare yourself mentally for the fact, like, am I going to be fired this year? Because cuts are now cost savings for a lot of companies. So preparing yourself mentally for that. Like, all of these things, people still knowing the hardship and the challenges and the fact that, like, I could have kids right now and not have a job to look after my kids and still being like, but you know what? I am still going to do it. And that is so admirable. That is so, so admirable. In my opinion, that is so admirable. And it means that, like, we're not all looking at the world through the same lens. Some of us are actually looking at it from a very optimistic, from a very much of a possibilities point of view, where, like, it's still going to happen no matter, because life is unpredictable and you can't control life. So it's like, I'm still going to live anyway. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. And whatever the case may be, it is what it is type of situation. And so the what now for me is now become a place where I got to a stage of my life where, in me being so pessimistic for so long, I've not gone to a place where I'm like, okay, actually, okay, hey, pessimism, here we are. Yes, things are bad, life is raggedy, things are not going to go well for us, but how can I still make it wonderful for myself? How can I still make it good for myself and my small little community that I have around me, that I can either influence or I can be part of, and I can also help lift up and also, like, help encourage, and not be stuck in the bleakness of the fact that, like, it's doom and gloom, it's going to get bad. I'm predicting that if the world is going to end, or if the world is going to get horrible and worse and worse and worse, it's going to take a few decades. We might as well use this next few decades where we know it's going to be bleak to still have a good time. You know what I mean? Shake a leg here and there, have fun here and there, like, look after yourself and take care of yourself, because we just can't predict the future, and we just kind of have to do with what we've got. It's that type of situation. You just have to do with what you've got and let it just be the case. And even in those people that I know who've had a very, very challenging, and the world has not been kind to them, and it could have been that they slipped into this, like, okay, it's bleak, it's bad, I don't wanna. They're still every day showing out, being motivated, still facing life, still finding joy in it, even though everything about life and the world is telling them that they need to feel broken down and they need to bend toward the life's full and not really, like, enjoy life. Even in all of that, they still be like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna, no matter what the challenge is, no matter how hard it is, I'm just gonna go for it. And I have so much respect for people like that, because I'm like, I would have been like, I give up, F you. Do it. And I would have quickly slipped into depression, because already, for me anyway, personally, I have a lot of unresolved. I had not have. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I had a lot of unresolved issues, and that bleakness of the future then piled on top of that, and therefore made me even see the world as a harder and harsher place. However, I will say though that it's like, sometimes focusing on yourself and your little thing and how much you can do in your little thing is a good way to help you stop looking at the world so much in a bleak space. Also, being able to walk into the world and sometimes see that is bleak, but there's also beauty. There is, like, so, so much beauty. I do a walk regularly now to help with my physical health. You can tell I don't like physical fitness. But I'm doing it. And it's Ramadan right now, and I see a couple come to walk every day right before the sun goes down, and it's just this husband and wife, and they're just, like, silently walking, like, next to each other, like, just walking next to each other, like, laughs and laughs and laughs across the park near my place. And it's like, it's just so beautiful to see that, like, even in this all of his craziness, like, some people just be like, let's just go have a walk, babe, before the sun goes down so we can go pray and eat. You know, I see kids in the park and they're just laughing and happy because parents are putting in so much effort to make sure that their kids are laughing, even though those parents understand that the world is bleak and it's going to be tough for their children, but they're just still making their children's childhood bright and just beautiful and just like, innocent. Um, and I see a lot of people doing so much to not let the bleakness of the life and the world seep into their children's world. In terms of the fact that the parents may be struggling financially right now, they can't even afford to feed their kids, they can't even afford to feed themselves and stuff like that. All of these things are real things, but still protecting your children's innocence. I know that's not the case for a lot of kids, but it's in some people being able to see beauty and bring beauty into their world and bring softness and innocence into their world where, like, they're protective of others. It's a kind of way that I think that we should be doing more for each other and just be like, you know what, maybe just watch that Tiny Desk concert, listen to that good music and be like, wow, somebody's really talented and brilliant, even though they're a broke artist. In terms of pessimism, you know what I mean? Or just going into that concert or that football game, or whatever that kind of brings you the little joys, the little beauties of being able to connect with the world and connect with other people, just kind of consistently and aggressively going for that, going to your churches, going to your mosque, going to your yogas and your prayers, and your temples, to just be in touch with the divine, because like sometimes you kind of control all things in this world because it's bigger than you, sometimes it's above your head, all of these things that ground you in knowing that, like, the world is fucked, but we still live because we don't want to die. You know what I mean? We do not want to die. I hope I added something to this. I really hope I did. And the debate was an interesting end because it just got me to realize that, like, there is a lot of bitterness and a lot of like protectiveness as well that we have going on around us, because everybody's like, I need to have my own. And I think that communally, as a world, we're becoming more and more segregated from each other. And basically, where everybody's like, let me stick to my tribe instead of like, let's like intertwine and let's like commune with each other, even though we do not agree on much, let's still intertwine with each other and still each other's humanity. I think that is slowly being lost. And for us pessimists out here, it is bleak, but we can still make it bright and beautiful. And let's work on that. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I do this podcast to share, and talk about the things that I do to make it bright for me, either through healing myself mentally, having relationships, platonic and romantic, having connections, having things that are really edifying to me and fills my soul. And it doesn't have to be what I talk about. It could be something that actually edifies you and fills your soul. And that's why it's so important to also get to know yourself, get to know what you like, what you enjoy, what brings you joy, what really fills you up, what really opens you up, so that, like, you can live this world wholesomely, knowing that the world is still bleak. Start with yourself. It's what I would say. Start with yourself and then go from there. And don't fall into the trap of being like, I don't have much control. I don't have much choice. Because on a macro level, that is true and that is facts. But on a micro level, that isn't. And on a micro level, you can start somewhere with yourself and then go from there. And not just for yourself as well, but also with the community around you who's going to pour into you. Because this work is not just a singular thing, it's not an individualistic thing. It's a whole group of people. I always see on my episodes that, like, it took a group of people to get a bitch here. A bitch didn't get here by herself because it was by me. I mean, I would have fallen off by now. I will be somewhere. I don't know where, but I have predictions. I have predictions. But anyway, I hope you enjoy listening to this episode, guys. Let me know what you think. And I really hope that, like, added to the conversation, added to the narratives. And I'm gonna keep doing this more. I watch a lot, and which means, I read a lot as well, which means that I think a lot about a lot of things. Find someone that's interesting, I'll come and talk about it, even if it's a celebrity topic, because a bitch like gossip. Sorry. And yeah, like the episode, if you enjoyed it, share with people if you think that it will help them. Comment if you want to talk to me or if you want to share anything. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let's just keep the conversation going. There's so much I want to talk about for our generation, because I feel like our generation are just falling into each other and we're losing ourselves, and I don't want that to be the case. So I really hope that we can lift each other up and still fight through our own humanistic challenge and battle, which is for us because every generation goes through it. And I can't wait to come back again with another episode. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much. It's been Abanga Lydia, the Reform Pessimist podcast. Love you so much. Bye. So goddamn good tonight, and I settle in my chair. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Me close, love myself the most. David, I'm in just what I be. Gonna be my own boyfriend. Be my own boyfriend. Just what I need. I believe. Gonna be my own boyfriend. Be my own boyfriend.